September 27, 2025. A date that should have passed unnoticed. Another quiet day in international diplomacy. But buried beneath encrypted channels and sealed diplomatic lines, a message was sent from Tel Aviv to Ouagadougou, a message never intended to be seen by the world. It wasn't a greeting. It wasn't an invitation. It was a warning. No, an order, and it carried a countdown. What kind of order forces a prime minister to speak in secret? What kind of message needs no public statement, only threats? And more importantly, what did Netanyahu say to Ibrahim Traoré that he didn't dare say in front of cameras? According to leaked intelligence from French and American diplomatic sources, it was nothing less than a 72-hour ultimatum. No negotiation, no compromise, just 5 commands, written as if Burkina Faso were still someone's military outpost. Netanyahu demanded that within 72 hours, Ibrahim Traoré must 1. Cut ties with Iran and Russia immediately and publicly. 2. Hand over all communications with Tehran to Mossad. 3. Condemn Hamas and align with Israel's war on extremism. 4. Accept Israeli-linked firms to secure Burkina Faso gold and infrastructure. 5. Comply or face international isolation with consequences. That was the moment the world realized. Netanyahu believed he could command Traoré like a subordinate, a Middle Eastern warlord attempting to discipline an African revolutionary. He assumed Traoré would submit, quietly for the sake of stability. But Traoré is not built for silence. The question now was simple. Would Traoré obey, or would he turn this private threat into a global humiliation? Netanyahu expected obedience. He expected hesitation. He expected panic. He expected the usual silence African leaders use to greet Western pressure. But this letter did not land in the hands of a politician. It landed in the hands of a soldier, a man who did not grow up in embassies or universities. But in barracks and battle-worn desert lines, a man trained not to negotiate with threats, but to confront them. This was not the Burkina Faso of France's puppets. This was the Burkina Faso of Captain Ibrahim Traoré. The leak reaches the captain. The original dispatch from Tel Aviv was supposed to remain in high-level channels, but cracks formed instantly. Whispers spread through the corridors of African military intelligence. Israel sent an ultimatum to Burkina Faso, without protocol. Netanyahu wants control over gold and alliances. He's demanding Traoré surrender sovereignty. By the time Israeli diplomats awaited their reply through official channels, Traoré already knew, not from their embassy, not from the UN, but from allies in the Sahel, men who had fought France, defied ECOWAS, and buried Western soldiers in desert sand. They sent Traoré the file with one message: do not answer with silence, answer with fire. Netanyahu's ultimatum had an invisible countdown, 72 hours. But at hour 48, Traoré detonated it publicly. Without announcing a formal press event, he appeared before the national media, standing at a podium with no Western flags, no European advisors, no carefully vetted script. His uniform was dusty from a prior field visit. The captain had not dressed for diplomacy. He dressed for battle. He began with a sentence that instantly shifted the atmosphere across the continent. In the last 2 days, certain foreign leaders have issued orders to Burkina Faso, believing we will obey like subordinates. Murmurs erupted in the room. Journalists exchanged glances. Cameras zoomed closer. Traoré continued, voice steady as iron. Let it be known, Burkina Faso is not a colony. Not of France, not of America, not of Israel. We recognize no master and we accept no ultimatum. Then, he named him. No metaphors, no euphemisms, no diplomatic veil. Mr. Netanyahu, before lecturing us about terrorism, look to Gaza. Before demanding we surrender our gold, look to the blood on your streets. If you threaten Burkina Faso, understand, we do not fear war. We fear submission, silence, not a respectful silence. A stunned silence. Reporters froze. Some forgot to write. Others sighed audibly as if witnessing history itself. Within an hour, the footage had flooded African social media. Not through news agencies, but through WhatsApp chains, TikTok memes, underground resistance channels. Within minutes of Traoré's speech going live, Tel Aviv entered full containment mode. Israeli officials rushed out damage control statements, claiming there was no ultimatum. Western media outlets hesitated, unsure whether to condemn Traoré or ignore him. But the problem? African citizens had already made their judgment. In Paris, Emmanuel Macron reportedly demanded immediate clarification, asking, "Did Israel just create another Gaddafi situation?" In Washington, policy analysts warned the White House, "If we publicly back Netanyahu here, we will radicalize the entire Sahel." In London, an unnamed diplomat admitted to Reuters off-record, "We underestimated Traoré. He speaks like Sankara, but unlike Sankara, he has momentum behind him." Defiance is powerful, but defiance that spreads is unstoppable. Traoré's refusal to kneel before Netanyahu was no longer his victory. It was becoming a test for every African leader. Who would stand with him? Who would bow quietly and pretend not to notice? The alliance of Sahel states, AES, made up of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, had already expelled French forces and ECOWAS interference. Now they found themselves in a new potential alignment. If Israel retaliates, it won't face one nation. It will face three. Unofficial sources reported a confidential message from Colonel Assimi Goïta of Mali to Traoré. "If they push you, we push back together." General Chiani of Niger reportedly added, "This is no longer diplomacy. It is duty." Central African Republic hinted at neutral support. But insiders claim they are fully aligned with Traoré's stance. Chad's military officers, especially lower ranks, circulated Traoré's video speeches on barracks radios. South African parliament members suggested an AU emergency session to declare an African stance against Middle Eastern intimidation. Even Egypt and Algeria, often cautious in speech, were reported to be quietly monitoring Israel's next step. Not to protect Israel, but to decide whether to publicly shift further away from Western obedience. African Americans compared Traoré to Malcolm X with state power. Haitian revolution circles called him the spirit of Dessalines reborn in the Sahel. Latin American anti-colonial activists nicknamed him Africa's Hugo Chavez. This was no longer African diplomacy. This was African mythology, forming in real time. Netanyahu could not confront Traoré openly. To strike him publicly would be to confirm Traoré's narrative and risk turning a standoff into a holy war of the global South. So, as Western strategists always do when exposed, they began whispering in shadows. Three likely plans were identified by Burkina Faso intelligence: economic strangulation, pressure; ECOWAS to restrict trade and banking force; Traoré to submit indirectly; media poisoning. Western press paints Traoré as extremist or dictator, sow doubt among neutral observers. Covert destabilization, fund opposition, or rogue military elements create internal chaos, leading to coup. But there was one more. The oldest weapon ever used against African revolutionaries: assassination. Sankara, Lumumba, Gaddafi, and Nkrumah. The method changes. The motive never does. But this time, the formula might fail. Traoré is not alone in a palace. He is worshipped in the streets. He is trusted by soldiers. He is shielded by the AES alliance. And most importantly, if he falls unnaturally, every African will know who pulled the trigger. And that knowledge is more dangerous than any bullet.